Return of the Mount Hua Sect. Chapter 283. Life is inherently unfair. Gah! Chongmyung poured alcohol down his throat, and it looked like he was in paradise. This taste is life. While he was drinking the spirit, it felt like the alcohol was coating his mouth. Since Shaolin was considered a temple, there was nowhere to get alcohol. As a result, he had desperately searched for a drink. To his great joy, Wei Li-san had brought 10 bottles with him. This is why you need to form good connections with people. Of course, Chongmyung wasn't someone who could not live without alcohol. But wasn't every other person the same? They didn't look for alcohol when it wasn't available. But you cannot drink here. It was common knowledge that if someone asked you to not do something, you were basically inclined to engage in that behavior. Huh? Was I the only one? No way. Chongmyung smiled, ripped off a piece of beef jerky, and threw it into his mouth. There was only one thing he regretted. The glasses seem old. You needed to eat well to grow well, and he was in the process of growing right now. But that could happen when you drink and have jerky like this. If Sahyong were in the sky seeing this, he would regretfully shed tears. Chongmyung thought of consuming twice as much, only if his Sahyong would say something from up there. What can I do? To live like... Huh? Chongmyung tilted his head and took another bottle as he turned around. It isn't here. He turned his head to the bottles in the corner of the room. 1, 2, 3, 9? And with this, it would be 10. He had run out of drinks. His hand, holding the remaining bottle, trembled a little. Then, no alcohol? This was bad. He hadn't had enough yet. Chongmyung made a wailing sound as he looked at the empty bottles. Man, if only I could just have one more bottle. What should I do? Chongmyung slowly turned his head to look out the window. It was a narrow enough window for one person to get through, so he probably could. If I sneak out and go to town... Don't. Never make trouble in these 2 days. Never. Hyunjong's earnest request echoed in his head and made him flinch. Chongmyung, who was in agony, finally shook his head. I almost succumbed to my desires. If it was in the past and he had heard such a request from his sect leader Sahyong and he was this drunk, well, he would have jumped out of the window immediately and only returned after drinking his fill of booze. Was that why my Sahyong would go nuts at the word alcohol? I am sorry, my Sahyong. Ya, you disgusting brat. You're a Taoist. Huh? Did I just hear some beast crying? No. It must only be some nonsense. Chongmyung coughed and opened his mouth. Unfortunate. Since there was already one record of a sect leader losing it, it was a bit difficult to ignore the words of this sect leader and go down the mountain. Chongmyung sighed and went outside his door. No one? In the past, Baekchun and the others would stay here. But now, no one could be seen. Either because the disciples of Hwayong had come here and the place was cramped, or the sect didn't want to show an embarrassing scene like openly monitoring Chongmyung so closely. There's no place like a kitchen here. Even if there were, it would be found in the main temple, and there was no way there would be alcohol there. As he scratched his cheek, his eyes lit up. No. There's no guarantee that the Hwayong sect leader brought alcohol for me alone. He probably grabbed some separate bottles for the elders and the sect leader. Chongmyung smiled and walked away. The Hwayong sect leader's room was definitely over... He stood still. In one of the main hall windows, he could see a man in a black Manhua robe going somewhere quickly. Huh? Chongmyung's eyes shone at that sight. This is why I cannot close my eyes. The moment I take my eyes off you, you're out to create an accident. Chongmyung said something that didn't go well with his personality and jumped out of the window. Then, holding his back, he started walking to the place where the black-robed person had run to. Whoosh! The sound of a sword cutting through the air. Beads of sweat dripped down his face and his legs were trembling. Yet Baeksang didn't stop swinging his sword. Even though his clenched hands had begun to bleed, his sword didn't stop. Because of me. It was a situation where his sect could win a high enough achievement that would shock the world. But he had been defeated and missed the chance to bring glory to the name of Mount Hua. What made it even more upsetting was that he wouldn't get any more chances in this competition to contribute to the achievements of Mount Hua. Just him. Only him. Right. He had slightly torn his lower lip and blood dripped from it. Why always me? Of course, he knew why. He too had gotten stronger. He could deal with the famous disciples that he wouldn't have dared face in the past. The Baek disciples used to freeze when they looked at the Jongnam sect. Nevertheless, the amount of effort the Baek disciples had mustered was the reason for their ability to come out on top. Yoonjong and Jogul. Baeksang knew it. He was no longer the second strongest among the Baek disciples. Yu Yi-seol was already in a position he could never catch up to, and a few of the Chong disciples under Chongmyung had already overtaken him. Among the Chong disciples, there were even some other than Yoonjong and Jogul who had begun to surpass him. Strength was relative. No matter how strong one gets, people who could outperform him would always come to the sect. How could he comfort himself by holding on to the fact that he was training to get strong? When other martial artists were starting to bear fruit, he could no longer ignore it. Woong! His sword, infused with ki, kept swinging. A piercing pain rushed through his hands, but Baeksang didn't back down and constantly pushed further. It happened because I was weak and stupid. It wasn't a big dream or something. Even before Chongmyung had arrived, there were already thousands of thresholds he could never think of crossing. His dream had been to simply assist Baekchun and make Mount Hua a better sect. Right, just. Baeksang stopped. He lowered the sword as he took a deep breath and looked up at the night sky where a single cloud couldn't be seen and the moon was staring back at him. Am I not suitable for Mount Hua? He wasn't thinking about this just because of his loss. It was something he had been concerned with for a long time. In the past, he and Baekchun had led Mount Hua. But the rate of improvement picked up speed when Chongmyung appeared, and it was difficult for him to keep up with this new pace of growth. Despite not showing it on the outside, it was tough on him. But coming all this way, he couldn't help but think, maybe I'm holding back the others. Could it be that a Baek disciple with no talent was blocking the path of those who could have had a better chance to grow? Baeksang looked at the moon sitting amongst the night sky. It's so bright. The sun couldn't touch it, all because the moon belonged to another time. What he wanted was to be like the moon, overlooking the darkness, while the bright sun could light up the world on the other side. But for him now, let alone the moon, even looking at the stars felt burdensome. What should he do now? Okay! A small voice could be heard from behind him. Baeksang turned right away. Huh? He had never imagined seeing this face, so he frowned, looking at Chongmyung staggering forward. How did you know? It's weird not to know when you come out like that. I have been out for a while though. It took me a while to go and come back from the village. Huh? Village? Why there? Chongmyung pulled something from his bag and threw it at Baeksang. Baeksang, with his reflexes, caught it, and looking at the bottle in hand, He was shocked. Alcohol? How about a drink? Baeksang sighed, seeing Chongmyung smiling, and looked around. Is this fine? This was Mount Song, a place that was regarded as a holy ground for many warriors. No matter how far the gate of Shaolin was, drinking here went far beyond the values of Baeksang. But, don't want to? I'll drink. Sometimes breaking your values wasn't bad. Baeksang opened the cap and smelled it. The stinging smell felt like poison. I was thinking about buying a good one, but I thought this would be better today. Needlessly delicate. Baeksang just took the bottle to his mouth without another word. It felt like his throat was burning, but he didn't hate it. Chongmyung smiled as he watched Baeksang drink, and then he too did the same. Now that's the stuff! He grinned as he looked around, and soon spread out the roasted duck he had brought. Baeksang shook his head. Meat and alcohol on Mount Song. He could never have imagined doing this, but for some reason, he didn't leave or stop. Oddly enough, this didn't feel all that strange to him. All because of the person in front of him. Baeksang frowned, looking at Chongmyung. One day, this guy fell into Mount Hua and revamped its image. Baeksang drank without saying a word. For a while, neither of them spoke. Only the sounds of gulping and the bugs fluttering around could be heard. And the first to say anything was Chongmyung. Right. Huh? Do you feel better? Baeksang looked at the night sky without another word. There are times in life when you lose, no matter what. And now you couldn't win. No matter what comes ahead. No. Why is that? Baeksang cut off Chongmyung and looked at him with unfamiliar eyes. No urging and no questions. He was waiting for Baeksang to release his concerns. That spar was the same. If I met someone stronger than me, my skills would inevitably drop to some extent. I was prepared for that from the start. It isn't like I feel frustrated or anything. It is only that at some point, I realized that the others from Mount Hua were running ahead at a different pace than me. Chongmyung looked at Baeksang without saying anything. I knew it from the start. My talent for swords isn't exceptional, and that brings it to a head. The only reason why I was a little stronger than everyone else was that I had trained a little longer. That is all. Baeksang's voice was so calm. Maybe it is because he was thinking of the thoughts he had hidden for so long. That is why I'm scared. I'm afraid everyone will get too far ahead, leaving me behind. No, it would be nice if I could try to follow. But in the end, I am afraid. I'm afraid I'll miss the cutoff from those who lead Mount Hua. I am afraid of being a burden to Mount Hua. Taking another sip, Baeksang sighed. Of course, it's tough for you to understand. I have no idea what you're talking about. I shouldn't have said anything. Baeksang took a deep breath. It couldn't be easy for Chongmyung to understand his words, because Baeksang and Chongmyung lived in an entirely different world, the world for the talented. A rabbit could not understand the heart of a flying phoenix. In the same way, the phoenix also could not understand the heart of the rabbit hopping on the land. That was the gap between him and Chongmyung, according to Baeksang. So, you're saying that the problem is that Sasuke is lacking in talent? Not that. I don't know, Chongmyung. Mount Hua has found its way. A way made by you. But I... enough! Chongmyung cut his words. You keep mumbling. I hate this kind of thing. Baeksang narrowed his eyes. You bastard. Your Sasuke is still talking. Instead, Chongmyung smiled. Can I tell you a story? Story? Right, an old story. Once upon a time, there was a person just like Sasuk. Chongmyung's eyes showed loneliness. Seeing that, Baeksang went silent and looked at him. What is this? What happened for him to look like this? His hand gripped the bottle.